3 months ago, my parents stormed into a stranger's house with baseball bats, swinging, screaming, destroying everything in sight. And they did it because of me. My name is Aria Lawson, and what you're about to hear is the story of how my own family tried to take away the one thing I spent years building and how their revenge ended up destroying their lives instead of mine. But to understand how things got this twisted, you have to go back 5 years back to who I used to be. At 28, I was living in a tiny studio apartment, barely bigger than a storage unit. I worked long days as a software developer, then long nights doing freelance projects. I skipped vacations, skipped new clothes, skipped anything that cost more than survival, all because I had one goal: save $120,000 and buy a home of my own. Every Saturday, I visited my parents. My mom, Marilyn, always acted warm until the topic involved my sister, Camilla Drake, her golden child who had already failed 2 businesses, and Camilla's husband, Bryce Turner, lived for big talk and zero effort. But that October Saturday felt different the moment I walked in. The air felt tight. Camilla and Bryce whispered like conspirators. Dad avoided my eyes. Mom kept giving me that strange she wants something smile. When we finally sat at the table, Mom cleared her throat and announced, "Camilla has wonderful news." And suddenly, Camilla pulled out printed charts, graphs, projections like some desperate Shark Tank contestant. A whole pitch. Her third business idea. And then it came. She looked straight at me. "Aria, I know you've saved up about $120,000. If you invest in my business, I'll pay you back double in 2 years." My heart dropped. They had talked about my savings behind my back, calculated my worth like I was a walking ATM. "I'm not giving you my house fund," I said. Calm, firm. Camilla burst into dramatic tears. Bryce called me selfish, and my own parents turned on me instantly. Dad's voice went cold. "Give your sister the money, or you're no longer part of this family." In that moment, everything inside me shifted. "I'm not giving her anything," I whispered. "Then get out," he said. So I stood up and walked out of their lives. 5 years passed after I walked out of that house. 5 years without calls, without apologies, without even a simple, "Are you okay?" I built a life without them, a quieter, healthier life. I bought my dream home. I grew in my career. For the first time, I felt what real peace felt like. And then I met Elias Grant, steady, kind, everything my family wasn't. He lived in another state, but we made it work. We talked about building a future together. I even started thinking about selling my home to move closer to him. Life finally made sense until one morning, an email shattered it all. It was from my mom. A cold, unexpected subject line. "Aria, this is life and death. Please come home." I stared at the screen. After 5 years of silence, now it was urgent? I replied with one sentence. "I'll come on Saturday." When I pulled into my parents' driveway, the first thing I noticed wasn't them. It was the 2 luxury cars parked outside. A Porsche, a Mercedes, both belonging to Camilla and Bryce. So this wasn't an emergency. This was an ambush. Inside, the whole family sat waiting like it was some kind of staged reunion. Mom's eyes were red, Dad looked tense, and Camilla refused to look at me. Mom finally broke the silence. "It's Camilla. She's in serious trouble," Dad added. "Her business failed 3 months ago. The bank took her house. She owes money to very dangerous people." My stomach moved between sympathy and the heavy drop of déjà vu. "How much?" I asked. Camilla's voice shook. "About $150,000. Before I could even respond, Mom grabbed my hands. "Aria, you have a house. A beautiful one. If you sell it, you can save your sister." I froze. They weren't asking for a loan. They were asking me to give up everything I'd built. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You kicked me out for protecting my savings. Now you want me to sell the home I earned because Camilla failed again?" Dad leaned forward. "Family helps family." I laughed quiet, bitter. "You made it clear 5 years ago I wasn't family to you." Their faces fell. The room went silent. want, and I knew then this wasn't desperation, this was entitlement. For a week after that confrontation, everything went quiet again. No emails, no surprise visits, no emotional ambushes, and for a moment I let myself breathe. Elias checked on me every day. "You did the right thing," he kept saying. "You can't save people who only show up when they want something." I believed him, or at least I tried to. Then one Tuesday morning, the silence broke. I was making coffee when I heard a car door slam outside. I looked through the window and my heart stopped. Marilyn and Richard Lawson, my parents, were walking up my driveway like they owned the place. I opened the door, blocking their way. "What are you doing here? How did you even find my address?" Mom lifted her chin, proud of what she said next. "Camilla hired a private investigator, a PI, to track me down, their own daughter." Before I could react, Mom barged inside my house, touching things, scanning everything like she was evaluating it. "This place is perfect," she murmured. "If you sell it, you can easily cover Camilla's debt and still have enough left for a small apartment." My voice went cold. "I already told you I'm not selling my home." Dad stepped forward, spreading his arms as if presenting the house to a buyer. "It's too big for one person. You don't need all this space. What I do or don't need is none of your business." Mom's eyes filled with theatrical tears. "Arya," those men called again. "They said if Camilla doesn't pay soon, something terrible will happen. Please, she's terrified. Then she should go to the police." "The police can't protect her," Dad snapped. "These people don't follow the law." I'd heard enough. "You two need to leave." "Now," Mom crossed her arms. "We're not going until you agree to help your sister." I pulled out my phone. "Then I'm calling the police." Dad grabbed my arm. "Don't be ridiculous." I shook him off. "Leave. Now, no, or I make the call." They saw it in my face. I wasn't bluffing. Mom's tears shifted into anger. Dad pointed a shaking finger at me. "You're going to regret this. Family sticks together." I met his stare. "You stopped being my family a long time ago." They finally walked out, but as the door shut behind them, a cold realization hit me. They weren't done, and this time they wouldn't stop at begging. The moment the door closed behind my parents, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Fear, not guilt, not anger, real fear. Because people who cross that kind of boundary don't stop. I stood in my living room, staring at the door they had just walked through, and I knew deep down this wasn't over, not even close. That afternoon, I picked up my phone and called the realtor I'd spoken to months earlier. "Hey, it's Arya," I said quietly. "I need to put my house on the market. Fast. I'm willing to offer a 5% discount for a quick sale." He paused. "That's surprising timing. I actually have a buyer looking in your area. With that discount, he'll be very interested." 3 days later, he called back with an offer. Lower than ideal, but fair. I accepted immediately. When I told Elias, he looked confused. "Arya, why the rush?" I took a breath and explained everything, my parents showing up uninvited, Mom barging into my home, Dad grabbing my arm, the way they looked at my house like it already belonged to them. Elias listened quietly, then nodded. "Selling isn't running away," he said. "It's protecting yourself." That night, for the first time since my parents had shown up, I slept peacefully. Within a week, the sale closed. Elias drove down to help me pack. As we loaded the last box into the truck, I looked back at the home I had poured years of sacrifice into. I loved that house, but I loved my peace more. "You okay?" Elias asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. I nodded. "I'm ready. Let's go." We drove away from the house, and with every mile, the tension inside me loosened. When we arrived at Elias's place, it felt like stepping into a new life, quiet, safe, and mine, in a way my old house never could be. For weeks, things felt normal again. We cooked dinner together. We planned the future. We searched online for houses in his area, dreaming about a fresh start. For a moment, I honestly believed the chapter with my family was finally closed, but I had no idea. The real storm hadn't even started. About a month after moving in with Elias, a call came that froze me to the core. It was early morning when my phone rang with a number from my old home hometown. I hesitated, then answered, "Is this Area Lawson?" "Yes, this is Officer Hughes from the Lincoln Police Department. I'm calling regarding an incident involving your parents." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What happened?" His voice was steady, but the details weren't. "Your parents were arrested last night for breaking and entering, destruction of property, and vandalism. The homeowner is pressing charges." My mind spun. Breaking into whose house? "Your former residence, 847 Maple Street." I felt the world tilt. "I sold that house a month ago." "Yes," Officer Hughes continued, "but your parents seem to believe it still belonged to you. They caused serious damage, broken windows, destroyed furniture, spray-painted walls. The new owner returned home to find them smashing his coffee table with baseball bats." I closed my eyes. They actually did it. They went to vandalize what they thought was my home, but instead, they destroyed a stranger's. When the call ended, I sat frozen until Elias knelt beside me. "What happened?" he asked gently. I told him everything. His eyes widened with shock. "Arya, they could have been shot. What if the homeowner had been armed?" That thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Over the following weeks, the full story slowly unraveled through police updates and calls from Nora Stevens, a mutual friend. My parents accepted a plea deal to avoid jail, but the financial cost was brutal. $40,000 in restitution, another $20,000 in legal fees. Total, $60,000. They couldn't afford it. They had no savings left. So they did the one thing they swore they would never do. They sold their house. The same house they told me was too important to ever give up. The house they said I couldn't possibly understand. But what came next was the twist none of us expected. When Nora called again a week later, I expected another police update, but instead she sighed and said, "Arya, you're not going to believe this. My parents had sold their home to pay the $60,000 restitution, but they didn't stop there. They gave the rest of the money to Camilla," Nora said, "to help with her $150,000 debt." I stared at the wall in disbelief. The same people who told me I was selfish for not sacrificing my house had now sacrificed their own. But the punchline? Camilla's dangerous loan sharks weren't dangerous at all. It wasn't some criminal gang. It wasn't shadowy men with weapons. It wasn't life or death. It was a legitimate investment firm threatening to sue her for missed payments. No broken bones. No threats. No danger. Just a regular lawsuit. Camilla had lied. Again. Manipulated everyone. Again. And my parents fell for it. Again. The final update came a few days later. All four of them, Mom, Dad, Camilla, and Bryce, were now living together in a cramped two-bedroom apartment. 4 adults, 1 bathroom, constant arguments, constant tension. Their perfect, polished life had collapsed inward. Meanwhile, my life was finally blooming. One quiet evening, Elias walked into the living room, holding a small box. He got down on one knee, his voice soft but steady. "Arya, will you marry me? Let's build a life that's ours. Peaceful, real, safe." For the first time in years, maybe ever, I cried tears that didn't come from pain, but from joy. "Yes," I whispered. 1,000 times yes. We bought a home we both loved. We started planning a backyard wedding. We talked about a future filled with warmth, honesty, and real love. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered whether cutting my family off completely was too harsh. Was I wrong? Was I cruel? But those doubts lasted barely 30 seconds, because then I remembered they abandoned me for 5 years. They tracked me down with a PI. They tried to force me to sell my home. They committed a crime in my name. They destroyed a stranger's house out of spite. I didn't choose this distance. I chose peace. And peace was the best decision I ever made. Walking away wasn't betrayal. It was survival. And sometimes the family you build is so much better than the one you were born into. Thank you for listening, and remember, choosing peace is never the wrong choice.